Welcome in. I'm Owen. I'm a member of the Limerick Cycling Campaign, and you can find us at limerickcycling.ie. And today I'm joined by Larry de Cléir on culture change in Limerick, I suppose, Larry. So, Larry, fáilte seach, welcome in. So, Larry, you gave a very interesting talk at a public meeting that the Limerick Cycling Campaign held. And there was a lot of feedback and people interested in what you were saying and kind of what you were digging deeper than a usual conversation, which is very interesting. So, Larry, how do you get around Limerick?
Well, normally I cycle. It's a lovely city to cycle around. It's pretty level, and the distances aren't that long. So, hail, rain, or snow, I generally cycle everywhere in Limerick. Yeah, have been for many years.
Okay. You spoke about culture change. So, what do you see? What is culture?
Well, culture culture, could be about art or music and all that sort of thing that people, but for me, just on the context of what I was talking about was the characteristic features of everyday living that's shared by people, whenever they're in a place or in a time. So, that's the way I like the custom and practice of life in a particular place. That's what I meant by the culture in my short talk. Yeah.
Okay. And like Limerick City, I love it. I love the city. I describe it as a big town. Like, I grew up in Ennis in County Clare, and I still kind of get the same feeling to a certain extent in different ways. Limerick is still a city, but you feel like you're in this place where you start to get to recognize the people around you.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And Limerick has such a strong culture in so many different aspects. What is, for us, on this topic of cycling, what's the current culture?
Well, I think the current culture is obviously you only have to go in the road every morning, and the current culture is the custom and practice is to, if you're going a relatively short distance, you hop in the car and you put on your safety belt and you drive to wherever you're going. You get out and you buy the paper or whatever, and then you drive home and you start. So that's you don't have to be a genius to see that. The roads are clogged every morning with people doing that. Or maybe the culture of dropping your children to school, that you ferry children to school because it's not that, I suppose, it's not that safe to cycle as well. That's just in terms of transport, or that's our culture at the moment, I think.
Yeah, and should we judge this? Is there anything wrong with this? Could it be better?
Well, I think in terms of the fact that we're in a cycling campaign, we obviously believe that it would be better if people left the car at home and cycled. I would anyway. I believe that, so that's why I cycle, and that's why I'm involved in the cycling campaign. I think it's better for our health, and it's better for our environment, and it's better for our well-being, our mental health, in fact, and our feeling good in ourselves. That we take a bit of exercise. It's exercise without even kind of realizing it, and it's good aerobic exercise. Okay, it's a bit dangerous because there are so many cars. Cycling isn't dangerous per se. It's not a dangerous activity at all. It's only dangerous because there are huge, big half-ton or ton big machines passing by very fast. So the reason for the cycling campaign, one of them is to make sure that cyclists are safe in this car-dominated culture, and that's one of the reasons I'm involved in it. It's safety for cyclists and for myself, I suppose, but also I would be safety for children. I'd love to see children being able to cycle to school again. When I was going to school, I went to the Christian Brothers, and there would be 200 or 300 bikes in the bike yard. There was a yard specifically there for bicycles. I'm sure there was a few hundred. There was about 400 or 500 in the school, I suppose, the secondary school at the time. I'm sure there was about 300 bikes there, and and you all just got your bike and you went home and you came in the morning in the bike. There was no people weren't being dropped off, and I think it was healthier myself personally. I think it was. Wasn't it?
Look, if we're talking about culture, like it is a personal choice kind of thing. Like people should have the choice to drive to work the 2 kilometers if that's the case. Like, or what do you think?
They do, yeah, they do have the choice, and I mean, one of the reasons that I spoke about culture is that if you want people to change their habits, I think you have to win over their hearts and minds, as the old saying goes, and that it's not that people make different choices. Yeah, I mean, people have a right to drive. I'm not sure if at this point in time in our evolution as a species, a human species, if the right to clean air and safety and reduction of carbon and that is a higher right than people's rights to drive. I leave that to some other human rights experts to decide. But I would certainly feel that at the moment, our grandchildren and our the generations coming after us will have a better life if we curtail our use of vehicles, whether even if they're electric vehicles, because they also have a certain do certain damage to the environment,
Okay, and so what would your vision be of Limerick? What do you think it could be?
Well, it would be. I think that in terms of cycling, because we're talking about cycling here and transport. Well, I suppose cycling implies transport, really. I suppose my vision would be a city where it's easier to cycle, where people get up in the morning and it's easier for me to cycle if I'm not going a long distance, if I'm not carrying heavy loads, if I'm not a builder or something where I have to carry bags of cement and everything. But generally, your average person just going into town, into the shops or into work or whatever. It's easier for me to cycle than it is to drive. That would be my vision. And if it involves using the bicycle, that I have a safe way of getting to my destination, and a convenient and a fast way, like so that I'm not put off by unnecessary things like one-way streets and having to. Cyclists don't go 3 kilometers if there's a 1 kilometer route there. It doesn't matter if you're driving, because you can just drive around, but it's cycling, you're using energy. So you'll take the shorter route, So it's safety is the only thing. I just interject here with a strange kind of a thing that I noticed in the last few months. At the moment, they're building the Opera Centre. So they managed to lay down a curb, because I go in that way every month. They managed to lay down a curb between the bridge, Matthew Bridge, and going in there to Denmark Street or Ellen Street or somewhere. Now, and now that's for pedestrians to walk safely while they use a few meters of the old path to do their work, obviously.
Yeah, they brought the curb out, isn't it?
They brought the curb out about a meter, I'd say. Now, I guarantee you, if the cycling campaign had asked for that 5 years ago, they would have said, no, that's not, no, we can't do that. We haven't the room there, So I think you're talking about growing up in Limerick and that, and we're absolutely ideally situated in Limerick for cycle lanes, in that nearly all our streets are wide, and it would be very easy to accommodate cycle lanes in the city centre without disrupting traffic that much. There would be a little bit of disruption, but it wouldn't be that big. We don't have to knock down houses or anything to make cycle lanes, or get people's gardens, destroy people's gardens. It would be very easy. We're very fortunate, really. And that proves that thing in Patrick Street. You still have 2 lanes of traffic, and now you actually have a pedestrian path, and where there was before a lane of traffic, that it couldn't be it couldn't have been done, and that could be done in practically every street in Limerick city centre. You know, that I was looking at it, that was really funny, like, you know, that
Yeah, and that's, speaking of change, Larry, like, we've had successes in Limerick that support, I would say, the well-being of people walking and cycling. We are the cycling campaign with that focus, but I think just about anyone involved sees the wider picture, that it's not necessarily about cycling in the end. It's a lens, but we're talking about promoting people being able to be outside and to move outside. And so the Shannon Bridge, a filter lane of traffic was changed to a cycle lane, a two-way cycle lane. What I love about it is the sense of relaxation. Like, I cycle it at least once a week to get into town to do a bit of shopping. And the relaxed body language of people walking along that side of the bridge now, it's palpable, and they step out, and this is not a complaint, they step onto the cycle lane when there isn't more space in the footpath, because the footpath isn't wide enough for the amount of people using it, and they don't fear for their lives.
Exactly.
It's a place that's attractive now to walk and cycle. It's a massive success, Larry, isn't it?
It is a massive success, and I don't read that much of it, but when I have to go out there, it's a great addition to the city. It just shows what can be done, and nobody was really discommoded that much by it. You know, it was put up there with you know, I don't think there's any big traffic jams because of it, and people feel an awful lot safer. That could be done in every street, I think, anyway, in Limerick city centre, with a little bit of reorientation of footpaths and whatever, you know, because there's loads of space in our streets for that. And it would be like, in terms of children going to school, it would make a bit of a difference, you know, particularly schools in the city centre. I know that at that public meeting that you were talking about at the start, one of the younger members of the group, Bobby, was given a description of the cycling to school campaign, or the cycling to school activity, and it was very inspiring, actually. It was very inspiring to hear young people doing things for themselves, and that there's you know, that sort of thing is going on, you know. And I think that, talking about culture, like, that people will gravitate towards success. You know, they'll gravitate towards success, and they'll gravitate towards having a bit of fun. And I think that's a successful campaign, and there's a bit of fun in it as well. And children are doing it for children, so it's a win all around. You know, it's a win-win. And you have cars off the road, and you don't have parents then getting into cars in bedroom or 10 to 9 rushing their kids. You know, so there's so many wins to it. Like, it's a success all around. You know.
Look, congrats to Limerick Council and those working in Limerick Council for having stood the ground and kept that lane open. And it can only get better. It can be integrated, and you actually can't really get onto it from the town side, it seems, but you still get so many people using it. So there's this kind of latent demand, I feel like. Larry, I was talking to my neighbour during the week. He bought a bike and has cycled for the first time in 31 years.
Right.
And he said, if I can't learn again how to cycle during a pandemic, when will I?
Exactly.
And he's like practicing around a car park to learn his balance again, because he's so unfamiliar with the activity. How can we support, Larry? Like, this latent demand, people who might be watching this, who feel like they want to get out there on the bike, even with their kids or whatever.
Yeah.
But maybe they're a bit afraid to. Can we help them now? Can they be part of this cultural change now?
I think they can. Well, I think one of the without safety, people won't. You know, safety is the big thing, really, and the only people really who can make things safe, like, would be the council, you know, and they're doing a good bit of work at the moment on that, thanks be to God, and they have money to do it as well. So, I think the other thing about culture change is, critical mass, which is kind of like that when there's a lot of people, when more and more people start doing things, eventually everyone sort of does it, and it becomes the thing to do. And I'm pretty optimistic like that around cycling. We're not going to go from what we have now to somewhere like Amsterdam in a year, but I think gradually people are becoming more aware, like your neighbor there, that they're becoming more aware of the fact that, yeah, there's a bike there and I could use it. But I think safety is crucial, particularly with children on the road, like it's so like children just go out and enjoy themselves on bikes, and it's up to us adults to keep the roads safe for them, and they mightn't be always as aware of traffic and that, so they need a safe place to cycle that the cars aren't going to go into to park and that, So yeah, I think gradually, I mean, obviously we're all going to, you have to be patient, but I think it's certainly a lot better than it was. And I think all new developments now, they always have a cycle lane built in, which is fantastic. All the new housing developments and the new roads around the suburbs, and like so it is taking hold, the idea that cycling is going to be a real option for people.
Yeah, it's always there. I agree. It usually saddens me to see the design of these cycle lanes, because they're not conducive to safe cycling, even though they are there. So that's obviously there's some cultural shift underlying there. Like, we have to mention the pandemic that we've been going through. The social changes, we might not realize for years to come what has been happening before our very eyes. Like, through the lens of cycling, do you see how the pandemic would have interplayed with cultural change and people cycling?
I'm not sure whether there's an awful lot more people cycling because of the pandemic. Maybe there is, but you'd want to do some sort of a survey. But there's a good few people cycling now that never cycled before, I'd say, all right. But I think the pandemic will probably have some impact, but I think, just my own personal opinion, that it's more the global warming, and that is a more urgent, like that the pandemic will come and go and we'll be able to, but the global warming isn't going to go away, there's a real danger there that we will reach some sort of a tipping point, and I don't want to be pessimistic because I'm normally an optimist, but I mean, there is I do fear for these heat waves and these, like it's abnormal by any metrics in the last few hundred years. So like, I think that's a more urgent thing really at the moment, that like the pandemic will be gone and we'll be forgotten and we'll be back in whatever we're doing. We'll be all flying out to wherever it is again. But I think that one of my motivations for cycling, and even before the global warming, well, it wasn't really back in those days, but certainly in the last 10 years or so, there is a sort of a thing there around doing my little bit for the environment. It's only a small little bit, like, but I mean, I just feel better doing it, maybe, but yeah, it'll change. I think the pandemic will change us, but not that much, I don't think people are going to suddenly become, they're going to change their habits that much. Like, everybody at the moment is just waiting for this vaccine and we can all get back together again. Of course, naturally enough, and won't that be great? Thanks be to God. But after that, then I think that the real challenges will come in, like around the temperature of the planet, and what we're going to do about that. And and I suppose there is a little bit of inconvenience involved in cycling, that you have to get out your bike and put on your rain gear, and it's like not every day is like today, a lovely sunny day, but so there is a little bit of a shift needed, and our weather isn't that conducive. There are places that, like Holland and Germany and the weather is probably a little bit better. It mightn't be much better, but it's a little bit better. They get long stretches of the continental climate. They get long stretches of months where it doesn't rain that much at all, and it's nice and warm. So like for us, it's a bit of a challenge, to get in the winter time to get up in the dark mornings and put on the old rain gear, leg it, so rather than just sit in the car and turn on the ignition and away we go, So yeah, but yeah, I don't know where I got into there.
So then, Larry, like bringing it through the lens of cultural change, like.
Yeah.
As residents of Limerick, like, are we here to convince people to take that inconvenience, or is it to support the people who already want that inconvenience? Is it inconvenient?
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, I think people who want to cycle have a right to cycle safely, particularly children. Cycling is a bit like that. There's no place for cyclists in your average city or town in Ireland. You have a place for pedestrians and you have a place for cars, but cyclists are kind of forgotten, So we have to battle with cars, and then if we go up in the footpath, we're told we're wrong because we're interfering with pedestrians. So, and I think everybody, I think cyclists, they're not doing anyone any harm. So we have a right, as well as trying to get other people to say we have a right to safety when we cycle ourselves, which was the great thing about the Shannon Bridge there, that right was recognised, because it's a very important artery into the town. A lot of people use it, and that's where I'd be coming from as well. That our roads were built for the horse and cart way back in the day, and then the cars just took over that, and if there wasn't enough room, they made the roads wider to accommodate more cars, but the cyclist was never thought about, so
like, is it unreasonable to expect and demand safety for our kids to cycle to school? Like, Larry, I walk only 300 meters probably. I'm very lucky to the local school, usually in the mornings. We have a pedestrian crossing, which is hugely dangerous. Like, thank God we have the crossing, but it's mixing kids with vehicles at speeds that far exceed what the European Union recommend for safety. Like, so this is a choice of our planning, of the people who design the road, of society, and shared values as well. Should I be able to drive faster to work, or should the kids be able to walk to school with the expectation of safety? So to bring it back to cycling, like, is it unreasonable to ask for a safe passage if you decide to get on your bike?
Well, I suppose I wouldn't think it's unreasonable. I think it's very reasonable, to want to be safe when you're, I mean, like, you have to wear a safety belt if you get into a car to keep yourself safe. I think it's there's no real legislation to keep cyclists safe, to the best of my knowledge. There's these ads in the telly about keeping out for 1 meter or something, but I mean, there's no, cyclists, I think we deserve to be safe, particularly if we're small and we're little children and we're trying to cycle to school. As I've said already, I think you were talking about roads and planning and design there. I think that the lobbying power of all the motor industry, the oil industry, the steel industry, the rubber industry, everything that goes into making a car, including an electric car now, by the way, will without the oil maybe, will always be a lot more powerful than the lobbying power of the cyclist. So there's a lot of money tied up in that, and we shouldn't discount that. I'm not really giving out about it. It's the reality of our lives, but it's a big factor when it comes to designing roads and speed limits. For example, there are there's a speed limit of 50 kilometers an hour, 30 kilometers an hour in some estates. There's a speed limit of 120 kilometers an hour on the motorway. Like, why do we have cars that can travel at 240 kilometers an hour? Why are they manufactured, at all? If there's a speed limit all over the world nearly now of 120 kilometers an hour, it's, but so you're up against a considerable culture there, a culture of, that corporate culture as well, and the humble cyclist isn't really catered for sometimes in planning things, Of late they are, but traditionally, like since the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, they wouldn't have been, there was no cyclists weren't really catered for in planning, They were just expected to get out of the way when a car comes.
Yeah. Larry, one thing you said about cultural change is to be the change.
Oh yeah, that's right.
What did you mean by that?
Well, just what you said about your neighbour there. If you want to change to happen, it starts with. If I want change to happen, it starts with myself. That if I want to, cycle, well then I should cycle. There's no point in doing. Well, I don't see. I think it's a bit hypocritical to be wanting change and not to be doing it oneself. Insofar as we can, and that's it. To be the change. I think it was Gandhi or someone promoted that particular. I don't know really, but I think it was Mahatma Gandhi in India, who was a major non-violent politician who brought independence to India from the British. And he said to people, look, if you want things to change, be the change yourself, whatever it is, and rather than be shouting and roaring about it and doing something different yourself, So that's where that statement came from. But I totally agree with that. That we cyclists should give a good example, maybe, Otherwise, it's a bit hypocritical. Yeah.
I often tell myself while we're talking about be the change, Owen, don't be that angry guy on a bike.
That's right. Yeah.
Have a bit of fun, and that's right. I love my upright bike because it forces me into a physical state where I'm almost like leaning back. It's like I'm walking. I'm not racing and hunched forward.
Yeah.
It allows me to put myself in that perspective. Yeah. So, look, you mentioned fun. Like, how can I make my life as a person who cycles in Limerick a little more fun?
Oh Lord, I think that what I meant there was really that. What I meant there when I was talking in the was that I suppose with children cycling, there is an element of fun in it, It's that like, and I think cycling is like, I know that I think it makes us feel a bit better, That's just my own opinion. I might be wrong there. For me. But it gives us that feel good feeling, like it's we've taken a bit of exercise, like all the physiological experts around adrenaline and all these and positive things in the body, endocrines and all these. I don't know much about them, but supposedly exercise gives us a kind of a feel good factor, and we're in better form because of it. And the way I look at it with cycling, you're taking exercise while you're still getting to work or getting to the shop or whatever, So. So, like, and I think I think it just keeps the world in general in better form, rather than sitting in a car and being very frustrated, only moving a couple of meters every minute or two, and looking at it and hoping they'll change it. Frustration, There was a bit of news there recently. There was a bit of a little bit of positive news there about this lady. She cycles. I know her pretty well. Angela is her name, and she cycles in and out, and she got a new bike off the bike shop, the Joe above in the O'Connell Avenue, and she's full of fun. That maybe I was thinking of her when I was writing that, but she's great fun, and she cycled all her life, and she's people like that kind of are very they're very engaging people, that maybe you should interview
Yeah.
her as well. I think, for if you're doing these kind of things, it's talking about giving good example, it's a great example, Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mm.
So Larry, they say that like you underestimate what can be achieved over, let's say, a decade, but
Yeah.
we can vastly overestimate what could be achieved in like a year. As we finish up this interview, like, what would you see Limerick could be in 10 years' time?
My hopes would be that, as I just said already there, that our streets are very cycle lane friendly, that we would have a very practical, common sense kind of a solution to that, designed by cyclists, not designed by somebody up in some office that doesn't understand cycling, and that we would have more of a voice. And in particular, I'd love to see, in terms of transport now, some sort of an integrated transport, and I'd say every parent in Limerick would agree with me here, an integrated transport facility for children to go to school without their parents having to stuff them in a car in the morning and drop, and collect them in the evening, like that. If there was a big advancement made in that area, I think it would make a huge difference. Like, you just see it at the school times, the difference. So I think, and once again, I that school bus, the cycle bus that you were talking about, is a great start there. That's the way to go forward.
Absolutely.
So it'd be handy if the buses came on time as well.
Oop. That's a whole other interview.
A whole other interview it is, yeah.
Well, Larry, thanks so much for your time. I hope that what you've spoken through today will inspire change in some people who get to see this, get to see our conversation with you. So thanks so much for your time and enthusiasm. And I love your ultimate optimism, because what else can we be?
Exactly. Yeah. We have to be optimistic. Okay. Thanks, Owen, and thanks
Great
for
stuff.
the opportunity. And sure, listen, it's long before.
Good see you, Larry. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.